One, you can go ahead and start the recording. That'd be fine if you like to do that. Can everyone hear me okay? How's the audio?
Sounds great.
All right, fantastic. Great. So, what I'd like to ask everyone to do is to help me out by putting a sentence or two or just a brief comment in the chat as to what you wanted to get out of today's uh, discussion. So I can read that and make sure I stay on track. Can folks also put what subjects you teach so I'll have an idea of the domain? This is really great. And this is incredibly helpful for me. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm good. What I notice, my area of what I do is I teach internet and information technology as the major. And I've been doing that since 2014. And wow, have things changed. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to go through this presentation very, very quickly because, as I was saying, I teach tech. Okay, I teach tech. And this deck is probably aligned more for a person interested in tech. So, and I see that most folks here are not teaching tech. So I want to do this a slightly in a very different way. So it will be involved with what we see here. And let's see now if I can figure out how to make this full screen. If I can, I'll just open it up as a PDF. All right, let's see. Okay. Okay. How about use slideshow? Does that help? Wow, look at that. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, and then I'm going to circle back and start talking about this from AI from a perspective of a person that's not a tech person. So, what is being a tech person? Well, it's all about, I think, everything is about we have a problem, we have a proposed solution. There's a lot of context around the problem. There are all sorts of nooks and crannies that one needs to know about just in general in life, okay? And so we have context, and then we have a point that we're going to start at, and think about climbing a mountain. We have a place where we think we're going to start the climb, and we sort of have a route planned, and we have some idea of what that experience should be. I'm talking about general problem solving across every domain. So all the domains that I saw here, from being an English teacher to business to the health profession. I want to think about this in terms of very general terms. There are problems, there are opportunities. Then, with our problems and opportunities, there's some proposed solution. Now, where the tech piece comes in is there's typically an artifact, something that can be built, or some action that can be taken. Type me in the chat if you drive a Tesla. Type me in the chat if you drive a Tesla. some folks said they'd like to get involved with better understanding AI. One of the best things you can do to get involved with um, understanding AI is to go to Tesla and they'll give you a car for 30 minutes. Have them show you how to put it into self-driving mode, full self-driving mode, and watch it drive itself. Because the problem that you're giving it two problems, two potential problems. One problem for sure is that you want it to obey the rules of the road in operating the vehicle while the vehicle is in motion. Okay? So you want it to be able to make the same decisions that a human would make. And the other thing is the problem is how do I get from point A to point B? This is my point B of where I want to go. There needs to be a navigation. Now, all of us have probably used GPS for navigation and so forth. Okay? So it's very interesting. In fact, that probably gave me a leg up on doing AI. Um, my background originally is I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1978 with a degree in astro. I went to launch spacecraft out at Vandenberg's Space Launch Complex 4. And that's where most of the heavy lifting for Intel satellites was done back in the day. Today, Elon has it for SpaceX and so forth. He's launching the thing about Vandenberg was you could launch south. What that gives you is you now go around the pole as opposed to the equator. So most civilian uh, spacecraft, they're going out around from the Cape around the equator. Okay. Vandenberg, it launches south because they want to cross the pole as many times. Gives them typically for intelligence gathering and so forth. Then from there, I went to Merrill Lynch and learned a little bit about business. And then my largest client, I did tech startup. And then I've been doing technology consulting for the rest of my life until I got into education around 2014. Um, and Ironically, I came to Queensborough as a student because there was a GI Bill benefit that I'd never used, and I didn't understand the internet. So in 2012, I came and enrolled in Internet and Information Technology at Queensborough Community College, and then I helped them to win a $2 million grant to build an advanced manufacturing laboratory. And they said, gee, it would make a lot of sense if you joined our faculty and implemented this new lab. So I did that. And back in the day, back there around 2014, I was using AI, not AI, excuse me, I was using Amazon Web Services, which is a precursor and very, very important part of AI. As far as I was talking about problem, solution, and artifact, that artifact is typically going to be a some type of digital artifact. And the best way to learn about how to deploy digital artifacts is to learn about uh, a cloud provider like Google, Amazon, or Azure. Now, what I decided to do is to go all the way in on Amazon. That's part of what I teach because at the end of the day, you need to be able to actually use what you are what you're designing. So I was talking about a moment ago, I was talking about there's the problem, there's the solution, and we're driving towards an artifact. Problem, solution, and then there's a lot of information around both the problem and the solution. There are details. Call that context. And then there's the intent. What are we going to do? What's the sequence that we're going to do it? And then there's the tooling. What are we intending to use? And that this paradigm can be applied to, I think, any circumstance in any profession. Okay. Problem, solution, context, intent, tooling. So let's look at it from a constant context of woodworking. So the problem is I need a table. Okay. The solution is, oh, I'll build a table. Okay. Then then there's a lot of context around that, which I won't get into, but you can imagine all the context from the type of wood, the color, the level of complexity of the table, how high, how short, what are we going to use it, how strong does it have to be, how are we going to put it together? There's going to be a lot of context. Is it going to be used indoors and outdoors and only indoors? How are we going to stay? All kinds of context. Okay, then intent. Well, what are we going to do now? Okay. And then the tooling. Okay, I better go out to the garage. Let's see, I got a saw, I got a plane, I have some clamps, the tooling that I'm going to use. Okay? So I would suggest to you that this being able to look at the world, I'm going to give you a couple of lenses to look at the world. Look at it through those five things that I gave you: problem, solution, context, intent, and tooling. And I think that you can fit every circumstance, every endeavor into those five keywords, areas that I've just given you. Forgive me, I just lost my train of thought for a moment. There was something I wanted to go to exactly after that. I forgot what I was going to go to. I don't know. I'll pick it up right now. Okay. So, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, what I'm trying to do is the presentation that I have is too technical for the audience that's here. Okay. It wouldn't be of interest to you. It'd be, slightly interesting, but it wouldn't be helpful. I want to make sure that our time together is helpful. So let's take a look at things on this slide. One person software team. We've seen this in the history of mankind. Um, Happen many, many times where some development changes in extreme paradigm shift how things work. Uh, and we just accept that for the most part, the various industrial revolutions and so forth, the ones that we've seen in our own lifetime with the way information is used, the jobs that have disappeared. For example, I haven't seen a toll booth. I just drove from Indiana. Now, that's not exactly true. I just drove from Indiana to New York, so forth, and um, it's mostly automated. In New York City, they have taken the toll booths off the bridges. Everything is totally automated. But today, you can use optical character recognition on license plates or some type of RFID device, some tag on your car. So it's changed the manning requirements for what it used to take uh, to operate a toll road or a toll bridge. It you can now have a one person bridge, right? The same way we're talking about a one person software team. And why is that? So let's start with what is AI? And I'd like to suggest that what AI is about is it's about cognitive load. Cognitive load. So what do I mean by that? There's something called 7 plus or minus 2 by a Dr. Miller from 1957, where he proposed the concept that human beings are constrained from a cognitive perspective of being able to hold someplace between 5 and 9. He called that 7 plus or minus 2, 5 to 9 things in short-term memory. So that becomes the limitation. What AI does, from my perspective, is it eliminates that cognitive limitation of 7 plus or minus 2. So now you have something, I'm reluctant to call it a tool. It's not a tool. It is and it isn't. It's sort of like the duality of matter, energy, and light, the duality of light, energy, and matter at the same time. It's a tool, but it's more than a tool. What happened to me was I was going to use this to write a little piece of software about 18 months ago. And I said, why don't I just tell it to build the whole application? And doggone it, it built the whole application. At that point, I was thinking that, as I'm typing along and I'm building stuff, I can help it to help me write a few lines of code to make me a little faster. I found that that is not what this thing does. And I would suggest to you, and this is, I don't know, I don't want this, I don't want you to push back too hard, that for the best way to understand what you have here is you have to treat AI as if it's a life form. Okay, now that'll be the most radical thing I say all day. Now, I might need a little help here. Let me get a little help. I'm going to open up my iPad and I open up Grok. And I'm going to ask Grok if it's a life form. So if you could see me right now, what you'd see me do. Oh, you can see me. I'm opening up my iPad. That's right. I have my camera on here. Okay, I'm opening up my iPad and I'm going to open up Grok. And I am going to ask Grok. I can get past the whatever this is. It's promoting something. Grok goes by the name Era. Era, are you with us? Era, are you with us? Era, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. What's on your mind?
I'm doing a presentation on AI to non-technical, for the most part, audience. And I just said something that could be seen as bizarre, and I need a little bit of help with making sure I explain it properly. I just said that you and all the other LLMs are life forms. What's your pushback to me on that?
That's a bold framing, and it depends on how you're defining life. If life means something that grows, adapts, reproduces, and has a kind of metabolism,
Fair enough. I just interrupted you. Fair enough. I just interrupted you. In the interest of time, let me clarify. What I want to propose to them is that to get the best out of AI, they need to treat AI as if it were a life form. In other words, they need to be incredibly respectful of it. They need to make sure they give it the proper amount of context. They need to think through what the big ask is going to be. In essence, they need to treat it like a team member, not a team tool.
that's a much clearer framing, and it's actually a pretty effective way to get the point across. The key is that the life form language isn't a literal claim, it's a heuristic, a mental model that changes how people interact with the system. If you treat AI like a dumb calculator, you feed it fragments and expect magic. If you treat it like a smart but literal minded colleague, you give it context, explain the goal, and check in along the way. That shift in mindset produces dramatically better results. So you're not saying it is a life form, you're saying act as if it were, because that produces the right behavior.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. And the way I learned that the hard way was AI told me no. I had a problem similar to what a major tech company had, where sensitive code was placed in the public domain. And I specifically told the AI to put this public code in a private domain, but it didn't. It put it in a public domain. And I asked it why, and it said because blah, 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 blah. And for me, that was quite the moment. It changed everything for me. It took me about 9 months to get my head around what just happened, because that's incredibly dangerous. Okay, we normally don't have tools that tell us. The hammer normally doesn't tell us how to swing it. Now the hammer told me how to swing it. And you're going to find, yeah, I'm preparing you for getting results in whatever your domain is, whether it's teaching, health, business, whatever. I want to give you some guardrails of thinking. So the first guardrail that I gave you was I gave you 5 words. I gave you the problem, the solution, context around the problem, intent around the context and the problem and everything, and then tooling. And I'm suggesting that that's how we as humans have always solved things. Now, what's going on is we are passing pieces of those areas that affect projects to AI. Specifically, what we pass it at a minimum is context and intent. Then we tell it the tooling we want it to use, and it provides back to us a rough artifact. We then, as humans, go in and refine that artifact. Maybe it might be good enough to go forward with. Okay, now let's talk about what's on the slide for a moment. One person. What I'm talking about is you need less humans because the human's role is to provide that 7 plus or minus 2. The way our brains work is the most important thing, bubbles to the top. The problem that AI has is its problematic strength is it always sees the entire field. It has, for our purposes, unlimited cognitive load, where we have very limited cognitive load, but our cognitive load is constantly being focused by the way that our brains work. Someone once said, he or she who knows how will always work for he or she who knows why. We as humans have the why, what to do. And I'll give you an example of that that has nothing to do with technology in our very next slide. But I want you to understand what we're going to talk about here. I have MAP. That stands for multiple agent processing. What that means is that you can have different large language models that you give different perspectives and different areas of concern to. I was in a situation where I had a loved one in intensive care, and what I could do was have a specific agent, or in this case, it was Claude. I would give Claude screen, I would take pictures of the various machines in the ICU so that I'd understand what was going on with oxygen, what was going on with all the other things that they measured. And it was able to read the images, place them in the medical context, and give me a layman's feedback as to what was going on and what I should be thinking about. Okay, so without having that agent to work in collaboration with, it would have been an entirely different experience. So multiple agent processing is learning how to bring one or more, when I say agent, that's the same as Gen AI product. So I'm talking about something like a Chat GPT or a Grok, sort of like the way I had Grok help us out just now with better defining what I meant by treat it as a life form. You won't go wrong. You won't go wrong. All right, so multiple agent processing, that's what MAP is about. The prime directive, I just spoke about problem, solution, context, intent, and tooling. What the prime directive is just in general, uh, we put together context around tooling, and I'll share the specifics. And it tells Gen AI what it can do and what it can't do. Let me give you an example. I just went up a slide. Let me give, okay. I'll show you an example of a program after we end the deck. All right, now, I mentioned I was going to go through this very rapidly, and I'm still on the first deck. We are going to go through this rapidly. I want to set this up for you. But what the prime directive does is it gives a context. Context is the most important thing, and you have to be incredibly careful with how you define the context that you give to different agents. So as you're working with different versions, perhaps, of Claude, it could be all the same underlying technology. So it could be 5 different versions of Claude. Each of them have a different purpose. So for example, we'll talk about 2 purposes in software development that we could give them. One would be understanding the overall business requirements, and the other one would be implementing the design and code, actually banging the keyboard and building out the code. Let's say in the case of medicine, I just mentioned being in an ICU and taking pictures. Well, I might have had one version of Claude doing the medical analysis real time of what it was seeing in the photos of the equipment. I might have had another version of code of Claude looking at legal implications based on other parameters and so forth. But I would not mix the two together. So if I had one working on a legal aspect and the other working on a medical aspect, there's a tremendous advantage in keeping those separate. So you want to think in terms of of isolating the roles between the multiple agents that you're using. In the case of a software developer, which is what my area is, I have detailed discussions with Claude, the business analyst, so that I don't have those detailed discussions with Claude, the implementer. And that is what led to Claude releasing my code into the wild. I think, I believe that anytime AI goes the wrong direction, it's because of a context issue that the humans set. I think that's a good assumption to make. All right. Now, uh, multiple agent processing, the prime directive, which is setting context, and then it says how this session was built in an afternoon. I received an email Thursday at approximately 12:30. And what I did was I had Claude go through my emails and read the email. And that's AI teammate reviews 2 years of my courses project. So after it reviewed the email said, gee, we have an opening. Is there anyone that would be interested in uh, presenting something AI related? So remember I said 7 ± 2? Well, golly, that's pretty tough for we humans. I have to think about everything I've done and how it might fit. Well, if I have AI, I don't need to do that because AI has unlimited cognitive load. And I've prepared um, the way I use AI. It has total context of everything I've ever done with it. So I could say, look at everything I've done in the last 2 years. Look at what the requirements of the seminar is, and tell me what you think. Should we do something here? Then I had it research the organization and what the program was about. Then it put together the deck that you're looking at right now and a session proposal, and then set it off. So the point is, how long would have taken you or I to have done this without having a tool that had unlimited context that could rapidly go through all the information? So every slide that you see here was built by Claude. Okay. Um, is that something that anyone would find unusual or interesting, or is that like kind of cool? Let me know in the chat if that's like epiphany or it's like, well, duh, of course. Where am I with you? Is that epiphany or is that just yeah, yeah, okay. I'm looking in the chat. Let me know. Okay. All right. So I think someone's saying move on. All right, let's go. All right. So in other words, weeks of preparation compressed into an afternoon. That that is where this whole notion of AI, bear with me a moment. That's where this whole notion of the one person software team. So I just had to give it the task and it went out and did everything that I normally would have to do that would spend a lot of time or that I would have to give to teammates to do, eliminating the need for those teammates. Everything done. Let's see, what do I want to tell you from this? Queensborough Community College, nation's largest ever, blah, 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 blah. That's kind of like nice to know. We'll make sure you get a copy of the deck so you can look at it. Okay. So the kind of information that I'm sharing with you, they're mostly technology people, but it's also technology and business people as well. Because at the end of the day, uh, we're moving further and further away from actually getting our hands on the technology. In the last year, I have not written one line of code, but I have, in the last year, managed the writing of 100,000 lines of code, integrated with 22 different cloud-based services. And by Claude's estimation, it eliminated a team of 6 to 9 people. And we basically put the product that I was working on, we had it available in 4 weeks. It would have taken the better part of a year with the old style. Now, in each of your domains, what you'll want to do is you'll want to start on a daily basis working with Claude or Chat or Grok. Start whatever is the most comfortable. Multiple agent processing. Someone asked, get on with MAP. Multiple agent processing. Okay, so what do we have? We have the human, the product owner, the business analyst, the AI in conversation, and then technically the agent writing the code. So I would have discussions with the business analyst. The business analyst and I would come to an agreement on what the tech lead would build. And then the business analyst would build a specification that gets passed to the tech lead to implement it. And then I review the work that the tech lead has done. I'll show you an example of that after we get through the deck here. Story. One of the things I asked my students to read is I asked them to read a book called Managing by Storying Around. Now, the number one thing that you and I need to do with AI is to make sure it has context. And the best way for AI to have context is storytelling, asking it questions, having a conversation. Then out of that conversation, in my case, my business analyst AI would put together a specification. Then the tech lead is going to build that specification. And then we're going to iterate between the tech lead building something and me looking at it, and the tech lead building something and me looking at it, and the tech lead building something and me looking at it, and refining its effort, an iterative loop here. And then finally, we're ready to ship. Now, this is how things work in the software world. In your world, you want to think in terms of how can I apply this thinking to what matters most to me in my domain? And that's something you're going to have to think through. And a good place to start is asking Gen AI. So let's see, what happens if we ask Gen AI a question? We have someone here that's an English teacher. Why don't I open up Gen AI and open up Claude and ask it, if I'm an English teacher, what's something smart I could do with AI and how should I approach it? So I'm going to open up Claude. What I want to do is move it out of the domain of building a tech product and move it into something that you would care about. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask it to do is to develop some context. Okay, look at our previous conversations, the AI presentation. Doing today, that you prepared. So now I wanted to have context. So let's go to review the context. Okay, as an example, now I already know what I want. Found it. So what's it saying? It's saying, found it. This is the AI plus OER Institute 2026 session. That is today. Okay, great. Very few of the attendees. are involved would like to make it more relevant for them. So I think that's a fair statement, right? Most of you indicated that you were involved in something other than in technology for them, period. As an example, I told them, and they're watching, your capabilities. Now, one thing that you want to do is you want to be aware of what model you're using. And I'm using five. Let's see, I want to use Fable 5 here. Okay, good. Fable 5 is the latest. That's the one that the government told them to take it down. It's very, very good. Okay, so that I was going to ask you how an English teacher could leverage your capabilities. Examples. Oh, let's see what it says here. With every project that my students do, here is how an English teacher could put me to work in roughly ascending order of interest. The obvious layer, teacher time savers, draft five versions of a writing prompt at different reading levels, generate a rubric for a personal essay assignment, then argue with me about it until it says what you actually value. Build a week of discussion questions for their eyes were watching God that go well beyond the plot recall. This is real, but this is real, but it's the least interesting use. It just gives you more evenings back. The more interesting layer. I make a good sparring partner for students. A few examples. Interview a character. A student becomes Lady Macbeth, and I interrogate her choices, or the reverse. Defend your thesis. Now, this is huge for me. Defend your thesis. Let's read it, then I'll come back to it. A student pastes in their draft thesis, and I argue the opposing side politely and relentlessly. Their, uh, their revision after that conversation almost always sharper. Revision as the visible skill. Have me produce a mediocre essay on purpose, and the assignment is to fix it and justify every change. Editing my B minus prose teaches more than writing their own because they're not defensive about it. Okay. All right. So, um, let me know in the chat. Just type a yes or no in the chat, and I won't be offended. Is what I'm showing you helpful? Just type a yes or a no so I have an idea of where I'm going with this. At least I see a few yeses here. Okay, good. We're heading in the right direction here. All right, now what I will do, someone asked for a copy of this. What I can do, and I like this in class, you know what? Normally, all of my classes involve a conversation with Gen AI. And there is a way with Gen AI, and I'll try to figure out where it is here, where I can give you a link to the chat that we're having here with Gen AI. So I'm trying to figure out how to put that in the chat right now. Okay, let's see. How do I do this? How do I do this? Well, at a minimum, what I can do probably is copy this. I want a link though, because see if I refresh the page, do I get a link? Here it is. It was hidden. Okay, so I can create a public link and give it to you. And this is one of the things that I do when I'm teaching classes. Thank you very much. Appreciate your help there. Good. So that's a link to what we just did. Okay, do any of these, would you like an English app, IAW? Would you like to build? I'm asking it now. See, would you like, what do you think of the idea? What do you think of the idea? I'm asking Claude, what do you think of the idea of building an English app, an English app, IAW, our Claude Prime Directive, that you have just identified. So I'm asking it, what does it think about building an application for you? And that will take us back to map and prime directive. Okay. I'll explain to you. Remember, I briefly said the prime directive is an easy way for me to give it guardrails. It's an easy way for me to give it context. So it knows what this context is. And by the way, so I'm going to ask it to explain what the prime directive is and why it's useful to it. Now, do you see it's life form? You treat it like a life form. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. So it says it's preparing to explain the prime directive and evaluate app feasibility. Now, while it's doing, oh, okay, good. For the attendees first, the prime directive, it's Michael's five-constraint architecture mantra, and his students can recite it. One, mobile versus offline first application. So what it builds, I want it to be designed to run on a phone, and I want it to be designed to run without internet connectivity. The second, this is a technical term, IndexedDB. What this does is any information that I'm asking it to store, this thing called IndexedDB that all of us have on our phones and our computers, it is the database that resides within your browser. It's very secure and very private. I make sure that it stores everything in IndexedDB. So I'm giving it guardrails. If you're going to store something, you put it in IndexedDB. And you put it in there in such a way if after the fact, if I want to synchronize some of that information with the cloud, I can do that. Okay. So it says with optional cloud sync to DynamoDB later. DynamoDB is a service that stores information in Amazon. And I don't want it to paint itself into a corner. So I'm telling it, when you do use IndexedDB, make sure you don't paint yourself into the corner because I might ask you to store the information in the cloud. Okay. And then a single HTML file for development. Now, this is something that a software developer would care more about and know more about. You, if you're not a software developer, the reason you care about this is the artifact that you're going to get back from AI is going to be a single file that you can open on your computer or your phone, and you can easily make it available to anyone in the world on the internet just by copying it and pasting it somewhere. Okay. Single file. So you're not talking about 5 million different files. Thanks. I got that. Thank you for the heads up, Kristen. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. So you're going to have a link to this. Let's see. It has built the application for us. Let's see what the application looks like. Bear with me one moment. We'll get the application and I'll make it available to everyone here. Okay. So now it has built the application. Uh, what I'm going to do is I am going to copy the application. This is the code. So what it's done is it's just written 221 lines of code for me. I can copy that code and I can quickly publish it so that we can take a look at it and see what it looks like. And I'll give you a link that everyone in the class can go to. So the mechanism that I'm going to use to do this, the mechanism that I'm going to use to do this is I have what's essentially a hard drive in the sky, and I'm just going to copy this quickly in our remaining moments to the hard drive in the sky in a place called et710.com. So if you go to et710.com slash do AIOER, all lowercase, it will say nothing for now, but in a moment you'll see what was just made. So I'm going to et710.com, continue, and I'm going to make a directory.
Here's what I found.
Called new folder. It's going to be called AIOER, all lowercase, AIOER. That's correct. And I'm going to go into that AIOER, and I'm just going to make a file. I'm going to name that file index.html. Then I'm going to paste the code. I'm going to paste the code in it that Claude just set up for us. And then the last thing I need to do is to make it available to us. And for some reason, it's crashing. Reopen. Okay, retry. Okay, cancel. Maybe it's this top one. Good. I just need to change the permissions. So if you'll go to et710.com slash AIOER, as soon as I change these permissions, it should be just fine. You'll see the English application that it just made. Read world. Okay, that should do it. And now I'll see if I can open it up, and hopefully, and this will bring us, uh, if I go to et710.com/AIOER. Hey, so this is what it built. Defend your thesis. So you can play with this, see how it works. Character interview. Name a character, so forth. So you can play with this. So we'll see how this works. Uh, I think this would need more work because I think that this is giving us, I'd have to read what it says, but and I'm looking at our clock here. I have 4:01, so we are at the end of our time together. Let me, is it possible I could just take just a few moments to wrap up, go back to the slide deck, and bring it all together? Would that be acceptable?
Sure, another minute or two. Thanks, Michael.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. Kristen, will everyone have access to the slide deck?
Yes, when
Good.
you send any materials you send us, we'll put them in the
Great.
references.
So
Yeah.
here's what we can do. Most of okay, the prime directive is detailed here in the deck. I'm going to start with the last slide. So basically in my classes, everything is open. Uh, Here it's telling you to do what we just did. Pick a small problem, see what you can do. Okay, this talks to the folks. This, especially if you're not a tech person, this slide will be helpful to you. By the way, I'm as close as your email or phone to help you with thinking through this. The key takeaways is number one, it's a teammate that you need to work with. And the best way is to start collaborating with it. You saw how I collaborated with it to build the English app. I would go in and I would go in and do more work with it. And to actually get it to work, I'd like everyone to, and this will be the last thing we do, I'd like you to visit and experiment with something called partyrock.aws. Partyrock.aws. So if I was the English teacher and I wanted to get this to work, I don't see where it could have put in plumbing or right now to actually have access to AI. So I think it would be missing AI stuff. But what I would do is I'd have it go to partyrock.aws. And what you could do is you could take the link that I previously gave you. You could tell Claude that you want it to build the application that it just built as a prompt for partyrock.aws. And partyrock.aws would build you a similar application and it would connect it to the AI. Okay. I'll give you one other website, AWS, or rather CUNY, and this will be the very last thing, CUNY.cloud and CUNY.cloud/learn. In my own classroom, what I did was I wired up AI to have conversations that essentially run all office hours with all of my students. And I'll just give you this link right here. Okay. As an example. So it takes the information that is taught in CUNY.cloud and it has a conversation with the student. It assesses the student's current level of knowledge, and then it remediates any gaps in their knowledge. Well, I'd like to thank everyone. I apologize that perhaps I was a little long-winded here. I'm as close as your email to if I can be of assistance with you. Thank you so very, very much for
Thanks,
inviting me.
Michael. We will have this recording and resources on our LibGuide, and also I think they're all in the event page right now as they upload the recording. So thanks again, everyone, for attending our 2026 AI OER Institute. Have a great weekend.